Okay, it's Taylor here from Hatchet and Seed, and congratulations, you got your little fruit tree, and now it's time to plant. So you can see what we've got here. We're planting into grass. Many of you will be doing that. And in this case, we're going to prep the soil just by digging. We're not going to do a sheet mulch technique, which you can do in the fall to prep, but this is if you need to get going right away. We're just going to form a mound out of the mineral soil. So step one is to get the grass out, which you're just going to do with this sharp spade, digging a circle and getting the sod out. Here we're just shaking off what we can of the grass roots so that we can use as much mineral soil in the hole as possible. The mineral soil is really crucial. You don't want to plant into just pure compost or leaf mulch. And so one key to fruit trees is that they should be planted in mostly mineral soil, which means sand, silt, or clay. So that means in-ground soil, not sort of amended compost purely or leaf mulch. You want to make sure that it's in lots of mineral soil and then put your mulch and compost on top. Okay, so we're going to try to form a mound here and get up as high as possible out of this high water table. Again, this is because we're in a pretty heavy clay. If you're in pure sand, you don't necessarily need to mound up quite this high. But if you have even kind of slightly inadequate drainage, you're going to want to dig a mound for long-term success. So that's what we've got here. And now we're going to plant our tree and use the mycorrhizal fungi and the bone meal that you guys get in your package. So I'll show you that. Here's your bone meal, basically a good handful. In this case, this is all well loosened soil, so I'm going to be planting just with my hands, and I'm just going to mix this in the immediate planting soil, like so. So here's our fruit tree. This might be a little bigger than what you're getting, but this is a bare root tree here. And so I'm going to look at how big the roots are, and I'm going to see how much disturbance I need to do in this mound. And you do want to get the roots going in kind of different quadrants, so making sure that they don't all get scrunched in one quadrant. So here I might try to get that bending that way, this going that way, and just get a good balanced root system going out. So before I do that, I'm also going to use the mycorrhizal fungi. So I got 1 liter of water here, a little baggie of mycorrhizal fungi powder, and so this is the spores of a fungi that lives on the plant roots and trades with it. So it goes out and gets food and water, and the tree provides carbon that it gets through photosynthesis. So it's this really nice trade. I'm going to put that in there, mix it around in 1 liter of water. So now those spores are all in there. There's millions of them, probably billions. And then we're just going to pour it over the roots of the fruit tree and into the soil around it. So now we're ready to plant our tree, and there's a couple things we want to look for. First is the graft union here. So you can see where it was grafted. This was the original rootstock, and this is the cultivar that's growing up. So we can't bury that. And then we also want to look for the root flare, which is down right in here where the first feeder roots start coming out. And we're going to bury it right to there. So the most common mistake is to bury it way too deep. So we want to plant actually nice and high and proud, make sure that we don't get collar rot, which is when this area gets submerged in a high water table. So plant loud and proud, and you'll be better off. Okay, so now we've got our tree planted, and we've just firmed it up a little bit because this is a nice big loose mound, and so you don't want to compact it, but it's okay to firm up the tree a little bit, bring some soil around the collar. You can see the graft union is exposed and the root collar is kind of down here. So that's what you want. You want good airflow up here, and this tree is not going to sink or settle because there's not a bunch of compost in the bottom of the hole. It's all mineral soil. So now we're going to spread the sea soil. The sea soil I would really just put on top, maybe a handful in the planting hole, but really using it as a mulch is going to be the most effective. And then if you really want this tree to be water efficient all through the year, what we would recommend is to go get a small, several wheelbarrows if you can, or a small pickup truckload of either wood chips or leaf mulch. And they're available through the city or at commercial yards. But if you can get a thick layer of compost or wood chip mulch on top of the seed soil. Long term, that'll keep the weeds away, that'll store lots of water, so that'll help you through the summer drought. One thing to avoid is don't pile the mulch too high up against the stem. So an example of that would be like this. A lot of people want to do that, kind of make a mound of organic matter right around the base. You definitely don't want to do that. In fact, if anything, you want to have a little ring around the tree stem like that. Depending on the weather, when it's really young, bare root trees, they're going to want high soil moisture all through the spring. So if it's really wet, you're not going to need to water your tree. But if it starts to dry out, your tree's going to need water every other day to get that soil moisture back up. So depending on the weather, keep a close eye, dig into the soil, grab a handful, and if it's quite moist, you're okay. If it goes more than a few days with drying out, then definitely water. And you're going to want to use, if you're doing it by watering can, one is not enough. You're going to want to put 5 or 6 or more on here just to get that whole mound charged up. So make sure you put your finger in 6 inches and see if it's moist. If it is, you're good to go. A T-post here for staking and some tree tie. There's different types of tree tie you can use. Recycled pond liner or bicycle inner tubes work great. So anyway, stake, you don't want to put it too close. That's probably the most common thing that I see out there is trees that are rubbing against the stake. So with one stake, if you're also caging your tree, you might want it to hold up the cage as well. So I'd put it out a little bit further to where the edge of your cage is going to be. You can weave it in if you like. When you're tying around the tree, make sure that it can't girdle the tree. They do grow. That's the thing about trees. So you don't want to tie a tight knot. Extra loose. So again, here we're just anticipating that the wind would blow it that way. So in this case, with the one stake, I'm going to tie it here. If you're planting a tree in an area that has high deer pressure and you don't have deer fencing, you're going to need a cage. And there's different ways to think about caging. So you can make a really wide cage and keep it caged forever, and that would be a good option if you're trying to grow a really low sort of Christmas tree style dwarf apple tree. Or you can cage it with a cage like this or even a little bit smaller if you want to grow a tree that comes up and then branches out. So that would be things like pear and quince that get a little bit bigger, all the plums as well. They could have a smaller cage where you're slowly over time limbing it, and then the canopy comes out, and then you could even remove the cage once all the fruit's above deer browsing height. So it's an important consideration. How tall of a tree are you going to grow, and how are you going to cage it long term? But this will help you in the short term keep deer from rutting it or just coming and stripping all the leaves, and you're going to want that if you don't have deer protection.